Hello, friends! Get ready for an amazing story. It's a true story, too, all about a little boy and his magical imagination. Are you ready? Let's go.
I bet you do. Stories with brave heroes, or maybe magical mermaids, or even silly little ducks. Well, guess what? The boy in our story today, he's the one who wrote some of the most famous stories ever.
All right, so let's travel back in time, way, way back. We're going to a country called Denmark, and that's where we'll meet our special friend, a little boy named Hans.
So, little Hans lived in a small town, and his family, well, they were very poor. That just means they didn't have a lot of money for things like new toys or fancy clothes.
But even though their home was small, it had a giant treasure inside. And you know what that treasure was? It was books and stories. For Hans, these books were better than gold. He absolutely loved them.
Hans also really loved the theater. He loved watching the actors on stage, and get this, he had a superpower memory. He could watch a whole play, remember every single word, and then he'd rush home and act out the whole thing just for his mom. How cool is that? Okay, so as Hans grew up, his big imagination just got bigger and bigger, and so did his dream. He knew he had to go on a big adventure to make that dream come true. And you know what? He was so brave, he decided he wanted to be a real artist, an actor on a big stage. So what did he do? He packed a small bag and traveled all by himself to the big city of Copenhagen. And guess what happened? He actually got a spot at the super famous Royal Danish Theatre. Wow! But it wasn't easy. Not at all. His dream didn't just happen right away. At the theater, he wasn't the big star of the show. Nope. He usually got the tiny parts, Sometimes he even had to play a funny-looking troll in the background. It wasn't exactly what he was dreaming of. Being in a huge new city all alone, it was really hard. He missed his family, and he felt sad and lonely a lot of the time. Now, he could have just given up and gone home, right? But did he? No way. Hans was not a quitter. And right here, this is where the story gets really magical, because Hans found a brand new kind of stage. But this stage wasn't made of wood. It was made of paper and ink and wonderful words. So while he was waiting around for his small parts at the theater, he didn't just sit there feeling sad. Instead, he pulled out some paper and a pen, and he just started writing. All of those amazing stories that were buzzing around inside his head, he started putting them down on paper.
Then one day, he gathered up all his courage and showed one of his stories to the director. And you'll never guess, the pages were full of spelling mistakes. Oops! See, he wasn't perfect.
But you know what? The director didn't even care about the spelling. He read the story and saw how wonderful and special it was. He told Hans, "This is amazing. You have to keep writing." And those words, they changed everything for him. And so he did. Hans wrote and wrote and wrote. And I bet you know some of his stories. Have you heard about the ugly duckling that becomes a beautiful swan? Yes? What about the little mermaid? Or the princess who couldn't sleep because of a tiny little pea? Yep, Hans wrote all of those.
Pretty soon, his stories were everywhere. Children all over the world were reading them. And grown-ups, too. His big dream of being an artist did come true, just not in the way he first expected.
And that's how little Hans, the boy from a poor family with a giant imagination, became one of the most famous storytellers in the whole wide world, all because he never gave up on the stories inside him. Okay, so what's the big lesson here? What can we learn from Hans's amazing story? Let's think about it for a second. Here's the most important thing to remember. Your imagination, it's like a superpower. Seriously, it doesn't matter if you make mistakes or things feel tough sometimes. The ideas you have in your head, they are super special and super powerful. So I have one last question for you. What story is inside you? What amazing, funny, or magical idea is waiting to come out? Don't ever be afraid to share it, because just like Hans, you have a story that the world is waiting to hear.